Hello and welcome to another weekly update, and it's been a week since Ignite, so that's a week you've had to kind of catch up on all the sessions you missed if you're attending, and just catch up on all the sessions if you weren't attending, so everyone's done that, right? Everyone is fully up to date. Well, I'm not, so yeah, trying to catch up on the sessions, but it always takes longer than you think and life gets in the way, so yep, so still catching up on the sessions, but there's plenty kind of to talk about still. And it's interesting to think about it as a developer in the kind of Teams space and the Skype for Business space. So, as a developer, what does Ignite mean for me? And Ignite primarily is an IT Pro conference. I get that there's not ever going to be a ton of developer content. So we're kind of happy with whatever we get, really. Build is our thing. And then Ignite is more IT Pro. So with that in mind, though, a new API, that's pretty standout, and that's kind of, for me, I think that's the main news for developers at this time coming out of Ignite. There are a couple of other announcements as well, but the kind of standout one, I think, is this calling and meetings API. So I wrote a blog post earlier in the week about the callings and meetings API, just kind of going through, fine, okay, it's a new API. What does that actually mean for developers? If you're not kind of totally plugged into this every day, what does this API mean? What capabilities does it unlock? What does it let you do? And why is it different from things that have come before? And I go through the kind of the functionality set, the things that the API can do. And then a lot of people have kind of either asked me about this or pitching this, this new API is like the UCMA for Teams. Now, if you don't know what UCMA is, don't worry about it. If you do know what UCMA is this a UCMA for Teams? Kinda. Like, it's not a like-for-like replacement, because it never will be, but it enables some of the same functionality. So it enables the functionality, the things that you couldn't do in Teams that you could do in Skype for Business via UCMA. Many of those very common scenarios, things like call centers, things like IVRs, those types of things, those kind of contact center solutions, meeting assistants, those kind of things, yes, you can now do those with this new API. So that's why the API is exciting. Other good points for me about this API, it's not going to be as complicated to use as UCMA. I think the structure of the API is better. So it's more it's REST-like, it's an API, it's an HTTP-based API, it's stateless. All these things are now well understood by generalists in the development world. So you don't have to be a Teams expert, you don't have to be a Skype for Business expert to make use of these APIs, and that's really important. That's a really good thing for growing the platform and making Teams a platform for developers to build on. And it's all part of Graph as well, which is great. Because it unlocks, a bunch of people who are already familiar with Graph, so that's really good. And I go through some other stuff as well. There's some talk about service-hosted media versus application-hosted media. I talk about the auth model, a bunch of stuff. It should probably have been a couple of blog posts really, but I just kind of looked up at the end and it's like, well, I've written a lot. Let's post it. So that blog post you can go and read if that's interesting. So also coming out of Ignite, so my colleague Tom Arbuthnot has called out the YouTube playlists and the YouTube channel for Ignite, which is a really good place to go and catch all the recordings. So all the recordings for Ignite are up now, and they're all on YouTube, so they're all discoverable. You don't need you can just go and watch them. You don't need to have attended Ignite or anything like that. There is a YouTube channel especially for Ignite, which lists all the different playlists nicely. They're all kind of categorized by the different areas of products and stuff like that, so it's nice you can quickly jump into like the areas that you really care about, and there's also a link on Tom's blog post, which I'll link to the slides as well. So a lot of the slides for the sessions are out as well. You can also link to the chat sessions as well, the chat threads. So during the session there's like an online chat that happens as well. So you can kind of link to all of that as well. So you can really kind of get that content and consume that content. So that's all excellent. This is really good to see coming out of Ignite. It's really good for Microsoft. They're very open about sharing this information, and they want to just get this information out and into the hands of the people that can use it the most. Speaking of which, the last thing I want to talk about this week is, so we've just had Ignite, and that's great, but Ignite is going on tour. So Ignite is coming to a city near you. That's pretty exciting. And so this is the latest kind of iteration of a couple of things Microsoft have done in the last few years. I remember talking about this last year. I don't think it was called Ignite the Tour. It was called something else. But basically the idea is that, that core group of speakers and sessions are going to travel around the world, coming to local cities to give people a chance to hear them and interact with them. Alongside that, there will be a number of workshops and a number of experts. So they're talking about 100 plus deep dive sessions and workshops and 350 plus experts, which is fantastic, and that's coming to a city near you. Now, I'm not going to read out the cities. They look like the surveys for 8, 12, 13. So there's 13 cities in Europe. Then you've also got 5 in Asia Pacific. You've got 2 in Latin America and 2 in North America. So all over the place. So for me, my closest is London, and for me that means it's coming to town February 26th, 27th next year, but they kick off December. So the tour starts December this year in Europe, in Berlin in fact, and travels through Europe before going to the Asia Pacific, specifically Singapore in January. There's a lot of crossover. It's not quite chronological, but they come to Sao Paulo again in December, and then Toronto, January. So you need to go and check out your local city and check out the dates and see if they line up. But if they do, then definitely try and attend that if you can. If you didn't get to go to Ignite, if you didn't make it out there. Even if you did, to be honest, like if they're coming to your local city, you might as well, it's a fantastic opportunity either to hear sessions you haven't already heard or just to connect with experts, get your questions answered, participate in some workshops. So it's an excellent place to go. So I want to call that to your attention. All right, that's everything for this week. Just a kind of quick one this week. Have a great weekend and have a great week next week, and I will speak to you again next time.